Welcome to the Westerville Sew and Save virtual classes. Today is September the 17th, 2020. My name is Emerald, and we're going to be working on applique using the Blooming Minds Have to Have number 570 Miss Witch pattern. So let's get started. If you look on the back of the pattern, it gives you a supply list. You're going to need some fabric scraps for the applique designs, the background, the border, the backing, the binding. You're going to need some buttons, pearl cotton or floss, fusible web, as well as lightweight batting. The finished size of this design is 6 inches by 19 inches. I have gathered the fabric that I'm going to use for this design. These two yellows are going to be for my stars. I'm going to use this orange for the band on the hat. This green polka dot I'm going to use for the words. This purple print here I'm going to use for the hat as well as my backing fabric. I'm going to use this black with the off-white polka dots for my border as well as the binding. And I'm going to use this gray for my background fabric. So go and gather your fabric so we can start cutting. With your pattern, you have several sheets of paper. You have your designs that you're going to, and they've been reversed for you, so when you start tracing onto your fusible web, that's important. Of course, your supply list and instruction list. Make sure you read this before you start cutting or fusing or sewing anything. Again, the approximate size of the wall hanging is 6 by 19. You're going to sew 1/4 inch seams. And the first thing you do is you're going to construct it. So you're going to sew on the side borders. You're going to press and you're going to trim. And then you're going to sew the top and bottom borders. You're going to press and then you're going to trim. And then you fuse the applique. So let's get started with the cutting of the background, the border, and the binding. I cut a piece of batting 1 inch wider and longer than the design, so it is 7 by 20. I cut my background fabric 1.5 inches wider and longer, so I cut it 7.5 by 20.5. I cut my background fabric, 2 strips of binding, and 2 strips for my border. Next, we're going to work on tracing the applique design. When working with the pattern, you have to make sure that the designs that you're going to trace onto your fusible web are already reversed. If they're not reversed, then you're going to have to reverse them. But I love working with Blooming Minds Have to Have designs because she reverses the pattern for you. So all you have to do is put it on a light source and trace. But the one thing to be cautious with applique designs is anytime you see dashes, like this star here is a solid line all the way around, but there's dash lines behind it, and that means that this star is sitting on top of 3 pieces of fabric. Where here, if you'll notice, this is solid except when it comes to underneath the star. So that would mean that this piece is under the star, but it's over this band here. And the hat, you have your dash lines here, so that means your hat piece is underneath your band. Up here, this hat piece, it has a little dash line. That's just telling you that it is underneath this star, which is a solid line. And as you can see, all the lettering is reversed, so that's how we're going to trace it. For my fusible web, I like to use Heat and Bond Light, but you can use any fusible web of your choice. For my light source, I have a light box, but you can use a window or any other kind of light source that you have. It just makes it easier to trace. Here I'm going to trace the top of this hat here. Now remember, your dash lines you have to include as part of your drawing. So I'm extending that, I'm picking it up, and if you're not right on the line, it's not a big issue. Just get as close as you can to that line. And again, you're going to extend down and all the way to that dashed line. You want to pick that up. So there's my hat there. Star. So here we've traced the stars and the hat. Now we're going to trace the letters. After you have finished tracing, now you got to cut out close to the drawn lines, but give yourself about 1/4 of an inch or so. Now I'm leaving all the lettering together because I'm using the same fabric and there's no design to that fabric, so it doesn't matter. Now if there was a design, I would have to cut out each letter individually, but we'll see how that works. Okay, here's my letters. I'm going to cut my hat out. Now because the stars and the hat are two different fabrics, they do have to be separated. Do not cut on the drawn line. Just cut out right outside the line. In the next step, we're going to match the applique trace pieces to the fabric. So with this bottom star, I was going to use this fabric here. For the star at the top, I'm going to use this fabric. For the band, which is the smaller of the two pieces, I'm using this orange fabric. For the letters, because it really doesn't have a directional, it doesn't matter. I'm going to use that fabric there. Now this fabric I'm using is directional, so I have to be careful when I place it. But that's the hat and the bottom band. So the next thing we have to do is we need to press this heat and bond trace piece onto the back side of the fabrics. Because of the light fabric on some of these fabrics, I decided to use a fusible interfacing. So that's what I did, is I just cut out a piece of fusible interfacing, pressed it onto the fabric, and then I pressed the heat and bond design on top of that. So now it's a matter of cutting all these pieces out just roughly. Because this orange was a little darker, I didn't put the fusible interfacing behind the design. And I didn't do it on the hat either because of the color. But I did do it on the stars because the yellow was a little light. So the next thing you do is you cut right on the line. So like this star here. That's one star.